Booyah, folks. We're going to review Nipsey Hussle's The Marathon Continues. So, if you've looked hard enough on like some rap folks' Instagrams, you've probably heard that phrase and seen like the marathon checkered flag and stuff. Well, this is the project where that came from. So, Nipsey Hussle had a marathon series. He was going to do like a marathon 3. I'm not sure if that came out, but I did at least see the marathon mixtape and then the marathon continues. So Nipsey Hussle died. He was shot and killed in the spring of 2019, and that meant that he really was only able to put out one album, which was just Victory Lap. And thing about it was in the month, the month before he died, he dropped a song called Racks in the Middle. But that was the last real taste of Nipsey Hussle that we got, besides like a DJ Khaled song that was on his 2019 album. So, I mean, Nipsey Hussle was going places, but I wanted to kind of get back to these mixtapes just because he dropped more mixtapes than a lot of rappers have. And I'm kind of glad for that just because, mixtapes are a bunch of fun and there's not a hefty price tag on some of these just to get some good fun. So if you're thinking, okay, well, if this is a mixtape, how much of the project's actually good? It suffices to say that this is a good download, and on top of that, there's songs that could probably be played in a vehicle and amongst people that are not just like your hardcore set or whatever. And that just kind of happens to be the thing. That's where I came from with that. So I was kind of curious, hearing like Lil Wayne in cars and hearing like people like that, Chris Brown, that sort of stuff. I mean, it just kind of reaches like a point where when you hear mixtape songs, Migos, those type fellows, you kind of wonder like, okay, well, what about some of the ones who don't really chart that much? Because Nipsey Hussle didn't really start charting until like the year of his death. And the marathon continues way back 8 years ago, 2011. This happened to kind of be, it's a good taste of what happened. I'm glad for like the idea that it was kind of back when like Rick Ross and Meek Mill were large and Drake was running off of Take Care, those type days. That was back when mixtapes would get like a couple singles and they would actually chart, and then, obviously, I mean, most of the mixtape was kind of bunk besides that. But I'm just kind of glad that Nipsey Hussle didn't fall prey to like those standard tactics. So, really, he didn't. He did drop some music videos, but he didn't really put out. It didn't seem like he put out singles for this. I mean, I looked on Wikipedia and it said like years later that he put out 4 singles just to kind of run with it, but I don't know if he did 4 music videos also. So Run a Lap, That's What Hoes Do, I Need That, and Rose Click or Clique, something like, I don't know that one. But I liked Run a Lap. I mean, that kind of sounds like, I mean, considering like the theme of like marathon and running and that sort of stuff, fitness, that's kind of an interesting song. I mean, it's not boring. I mean, it's not really a smoking song. It's not really like for the ladies. It's not really a cruising around song. And this is basically like, this is Nipsey Hussle. This is what I'm about. It's just kind of like a hustle song almost, the way he's just kind of on his grind and stuff, but it's good. I mean, I like other songs. Like, I like the song I Need That more, but it's still good for what it was. That's What Hoes Do has YG and also Rim Pow on there. So, I mean, Nipsey Hussle and YG have chemistry. YG has been one of the most avid people for talking about Nipsey's death, but obviously going back as far as this was, it is a good song, and I like the beat on that one. I mean, it talks about women, but it's just kind of from an angle. It's kind of like a counter verse to like I Ain't Mad at Ya, which I kind of liked. Tupac, when he said I ain't mad at you, was just kind of talking about like homies and people who he's falling out or otherwise having problems with, but it's just kind of from the angle of, that's what women do. That's just their attitude towards, low, low caliber tendencies. So I kind of like that. I mean, and it's not even that negative. I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of sarcastic, but you get the idea. And then I need that. That kind of reminds me of a song Meek Mill would do. That's that one's a little bit darker, has more of like this kind of a harsher feel to it. It's not quite as sunny as Run a Lap is, but I do like that song. I mean, and when we talk about Nipsey Hussle, the lyrics, I mean, he can rap, but he's just kind of like Snoop Dogg, I would kind of see him. I mean, he has like the same cadence and way of speaking, but also he's not, I mean, he can be lyrical, but for the most part, I mean, it just kind of, it's serviceable. That's kind of what I got from it, is just that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not quite as like addicted to like his lyricism as much as like Lil Wayne, but it's not like, I'm ignoring him when he's on. That's kind of, considering that this is one of the first projects that I've heard by him, I've kind of got to break this mixtape in a little bit more, but for what it is, I do think that he's, I didn't really like the Rose song. I mean, that one is just like a long verse. That's what that one is. I mean, the beat was okay, but so now just to talk about the rest of the mixtape. So out of 14 songs, I wound up liking 5 of them, and I'll explain those 5 songs to you. So Run a Lap, That's What Hoes Do, Everything, I Need That, and They Know. So the 2 songs I haven't talked about, Everything and They Know, they basically sound pretty West Coast. I mean, I would have to talk about it's like a mixtape version of Doggy Style, just with like darker edges to it. And that's kind of the thing. I mean, when you think of Doggy Style, when you think of songs like Gin and Juice and Ain't No Fun, If the Homies Can't Have None, and Doggy Dog World, and Who Am I, and those type records. I mean, a lot of that was just basically commercial rap, and it wasn't. I mean, it was obviously gangster rap, but it was commercial just because of how widespread Snoop Dogg kind of was. But it didn't really have like the grittiest, songs that you might expect from like Dub C or Trey D or MC8 or someone like that. So, just that sort of feel. I mean, Nipsey Hussle kind of takes like the kind of atmospheres of that, just not having like the huge commercial isms of Snoop Dogg. That was just kind of the thing. I mean, that's why I like Doggy Style, but that's kind of why I like this Marathon Continues mixtape. That might as well. I would almost say, I mean, the big weakness that I don't like about the Marathon Continues is it just does not have like a single that is as large as something that could probably have charted. I mean, Nipsey Hussle, basically up to when he died, could not figure out how to get like a radio song to chart and kind of just be completely commercial. Like, it seems like his most known songs, even after death, are just the Higher song with DJ Khaled and then Racks in the Middle, and maybe a couple songs off of Victory Lap. But way back in 2011, he still had just not broke the mold. And I mean, it's not in terms of quality that that's the case, but just in terms of like trying to say, well, this is the song that needs to anchor him. And that's just kind of the problem, is there's good songs on here, but nothing kind of rises above the rest of them to kind of prove that. And Snoop Dogg was able to do that with Doggy Style, and that's why I kind of feel like this is similar to like Doggy Style in like mixtape format, but it just doesn't have like the Gin and Juice and Who Am I records that Doggy Style had, which is the weakness to it. So that's kind of the problem. I mean, other than that, it's stellar. I can tell just by the way that this goes. I mean, it has enough hits on here to where it's fun, and I would actually listen to this on some random day, maybe me going to the grocery store or taking a walk, or something like that, one of those type things that you would do. um, there's just obviously some good moments for that sort of kind of thing. So I mean, and really, I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping for with Nipsey Hussle, is just kind of like a club record and maybe something of that value. I know Nipsey Hussle could make a record like Gin and Juice, but I couldn't figure out why there just wasn't a record like that on there. And, obviously having like a house party type record, that sort of shit. I mean, I know Nipsey Hussle could do it. Just some sort of gangsta party and just, red cups everywhere, gin and, shit like that, hood rats and all that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously you just would have to get like Ty Dolla Sign on the hook or some shit like that, and you'd be set. But this is like the main thing. So, I mean, because besides that, I mean, this record is fun. I mean, I solidly like 5 out of 14, and for a mixtape, that's actually rather stellar. So that's like the main thing there. But there's a couple too many songs that are just long verses, which I would have preferred him to just throw in an extra song or something. Would have preferred for him to just throw in an extra song or do something more clever. And that's just what I meant, is as far as, trying to have like some sort of club song, and maybe even like just a riding out kind of song, like, this is for like the whip or something like that. But, for what it is, I mean, it is West Coast, and I can tell it's West Coast. Maybe I would have liked like someone else who was kind of thriving from that side on there. E40, I definitely think could have been on there, and maybe someone like that, Schoolboy Q, one of those cats, uh, what's his name, J Rock. I think he would have been nice on that project, but so that's just kind of the situation. So I'm gonna give this mixtape. Basically, I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10, just because, like I was saying, it's basically like a miniature doggy style mixtape. It has a lot of similarities. It has the quality in the songs. He's not lacking in the lyrics, but the problem with it is it just lacks something to anchor it, and that's kind of. I mean, I was looking for something to kind of say, okay, this is like the big song, but I mean, there are songs that kind of serve their purpose as far as mixtape, just filling up a playlist or something like that. But there's not really, I have to keep saying that there's just not really like the, like California love of the project. So that's kind of the situation. So Social Score gets like a 5 also, because he did put out 4 singles, so I'm proud of that. And I saw, like, he said that this was supposed to be an in-house record, which I did pay attention to. I like the idea behind that, just kind of focusing with more folks that you know better and are on, just have more realistic terms with. But that's kind of how that wound up turning out, is, for what it was. So I guess just to talk about like a few of the records I didn't like, this like Rose Click I didn't like, and The Mansion, and Road to Riches. I mean, to some of these, like I was saying, they could have been songs, and I didn't like Fly Crippin' just because that was ripped right off of Lil Wayne's Bill Gates. Honestly, I didn't like the Lil Wayne songs. I already didn't like that beat, but it probably could have filled up something different. So for what it was, me talking about 5 out of 14. I mean, obviously, me giving that a 5.5, but it's just the fact that, so many of the records were actually good compared to the numbers on there. Because I know I could have liked just 3 out of 14, and that wouldn't have been good. But considering that there were more, I was not expecting the ones that I did like to actually like. So it was kind of surprising, and it was also, enticing at the same time. So surprising, enticing, and on top of that, there's just was more on here than what's on most standard mixtapes. So it's kind of, even though less than half of the project was I liked, I still felt like the songs on here, just the fact that he packed more on it, considering that it was free, happened to be a good sign. If it would have had like a song like California Love or Gin and Juice or something like that, I know obviously that's difficult for a mixtape. It didn't have to be like something that hits like number 5 or number 13 on the Billboard 100, but simply something that would have kind of had like a real massive, just like, yeah, this is a Nipsey Hussle song. I would have definitely said like Absolutely. But for what it is, it's like, to me, in my opinion, it's a miniature doggy style mixtape, and that's solid enough. So 5.5 out of 10.